Hello, good evening. Welcome one and all to yet another wand waving event. My name is Taise Lewis. I'm the Head and Development Specialist of the Women and Development Unit of the University of the West Indies Open Campus. And this evening we're having a public forum in commemoration of International Women's Day 2022. And this forum is called, basically, What Have We Learned Since COVID? Addressing the biases and finding solutions in Caribbean education. And that, of course, can mean quite a lot of things. But one of the things that we really wanted to pay attention to is acknowledging that across the Caribbean, we have an inequitable or an unequal education system, depending on the island that we're looking at or the territory that we're looking at. But we're pretty much it's 3 tiers of an education system: private, public, and the 2-tier system rather tends to be affected based on class or based on gender, and there are disadvantages in terms of access if you're a person with child with disabilities, if you're a person in a rural community, and other various categories that affect access to education and also affect the kind of school that you end up going to. And in addition to that, we have pedagogical approaches that some persons have been saying in education spaces at the policy level that the linear approach or the assembly line approach to education throughout the region does need transformation, and that some of the way in which the physical plans of schools have been designed needs to be revisited to facilitate more child-centered learning or more play-centered learning across the education system. And that there are various levels of educational transformation that has been acknowledged and needs to happen throughout the Caribbean, including changes that would more incorporate information technology into pedagogy and into the type of teaching that is taking place in the various classrooms and so on. And also in terms of the reliance on standardized testing as a measure of intelligence and the 11+ exam to enter secondary schools and so on, and the way in which that entire system creates another layer of biases and unequal access to quality secondary education. And in some ways, it then does not necessarily cater to some of the different ways in which a 21st century learner needs to learn. And then we have COVID. So COVID then upends quite all that, and presents us with another set of challenges in which we have to respond to. So even before COVID, if some educators started different schools in a response to mainstream education by setting up primary schools or private schools that were based on STEAM, or tried to set up schools that were more, had a bilingual approach to education, or some parents were dissatisfied, so they decided to homeschool or create homeschooling cooperatives for their children to learn. And alongside, the traditional or the mainstream high school, so to speak. So, these things are happening at various levels across the educational systems in the Caribbean. And then we have COVID. So when COVID happens to hit, it affects 1.3 million learners across the English-speaking Caribbean and over 90,000 teachers across the English-speaking Caribbean, if I'm following the statistics from UNESCO, World Food Programme, and UNICEF carefully. And COVID then affects education by the learners and the teachers by reducing collaborative learning, the inequality of access to devices, to Wi-Fi and electricity, and an inadequate pedagogical modes to teach and reach the learners across technology, because it would rely on a different kind of approach using Zoom technology or Google Meets or whatever, that a lot of the teachers had to come up with a swift learning curve to adjust and be able to continue to teach. And it affected teachers in different ways, from territory to territory, from school to school. So a lot of stuff was happening, and various challenges happened across the education system that seriously impaired the attainment of a lot of the examinations and a lot of the different parts of the curriculum that were expected that the learners would actually go through. So here we are now looking at not just how we address the biases, but what kind of solutions can we come out of now that we're moving back into face-to-face school on a phased basis. And again, there is no strict way of doing it. Each island is different. Each school is different. And one of the things that we have had to pay attention to, if we look at the guidelines from UNICEF, is that the reopening has to address safety, security, and access, and also come up with very innovative mechanisms to address the learning loss that so many children and young persons have been faced with, that in a sense perhaps perpetuated the biases that existed before COVID. So here we are this evening looking at this topic here, and what we wanted to do is welcome everyone to what we hope and we promise will be a very engaging discussion with our guest speaker, Ms. Rachel Mcdonald, an educational specialist, and a panel of young people who will also engage in the topic. So right now I'm going to hand over to Nishka Maharaj from Trinidad, and she is going to introduce our guest speaker. Over to you, Nishka.
Ms. Rachel Mcdonald is an education specialist from Jamaica. She has a bachelor's in Spanish and a master's degree in education with specialization in early childhood and primary education. She has been teaching since she was 16 years old, when she started summer camps at her parents' house, and that morphed into further work and studies in education. She taught Spanish at the secondary level for a long time, until she started Fundaciones in 2008, a bilingual school focusing on child-centered kindergarten and primary education. She also sits on a number of government boards, such as the Early Childhood Commission, Chase Fund, Board of the College Agriculture, Science, and Education. She has also served on the National Council of Education. She's an advocate for fun-centered learning and believes that now is the time for the reimagining of education. Since COVID, Rachel has pivoted into education consultancies, providing programs of support for teachers and learning interventions with communities and their schools. As an entrepreneur, she creates child-friendly eduspaces based on sustainable development principles and works with schools, parents, and teachers to develop their own eduspaces since COVID.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Nishka. It's wonderful. I'm going to hand over to Kellyanne just now, but one of the things I wanted to do quickly is anyone who is listening, you can watch the discussion on UWI Open Campus's Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel. Kellyanne, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. It's glad to have you here joining us this evening for this discussion. And I'm going to introduce our discussants for the evening, some interesting and bright young people who are here to share their views and let us hear their voices on the topic. First, we have Taise Lewis. She's a 9-year-old Barbadian girl who is a grade 3 student at the St. Angela's Convent School in Barbados. Her favorite subjects are English, science, social studies, and music. Taise is also a dancer. Her additional talents include writing stories, doing experiments, making up her own dances, and creating magical fortresses. Taise, if you could show us your face, babe, so that we can see you. Hi, Taise, welcome. Our next discussant is Kaimorali Walker. She's a 12-year-old Jamaican girl who is a grade 7 student at the Immaculate Conception High School in Jamaica, where she's a member of the Dance Society and Swim Club. She enjoys dancing, speech, and drama, gymnastics, art, and crafts, as well as creating and editing videos. She was homeschooled for 6 years, and Kaimora is a multiple medalist in the speech competition of the Jamaica's Cultural Development Commission. a dancer herself from an early age. Her summers are spent at either Edna Manley College or Pell Dance Academy. A high-spirited young lady, Kaimorali is also said to be able to make friends with a rock. Kaimora, if you could show your face and say hi. Hi, Kaimora. Next, we have Issa Mandela Nefatari. He's 14 years old and presently a homeschooler from September 2019 to December 2021. He attended public secondary school in Barbados. He returned to homeschooling in January 2022. At the primary level, Issa Mandela attended private school and a group homeschool in Trinidad before attending public secondary school in Barbados. Issa Mandela loves and enjoys music, playing video games and art. He plays the piano, djembe drum, traditional Orisa drums, and steel pan. Prior to COVID-19, Issa Mandela was an avid Taekwondo athlete. Hi, Issa Mandela, good night. Our next discussant, Nishka Maharaj, you just saw her a moment ago, is a 16-year-old citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. From the ages of 4 to 10, she attended the primary school Specialist Learning Center, after which she attended secondary school at St. Augustine's Girls High School for 5 years. Currently, she's completing sixth form at Hillview College. Nishka completed and achieved distinctions in her 8 chosen CSET subjects and co-wrote a newspaper article on how our current education system negatively affects students' mental health. Nishka is a visual artist, where one of her works was displayed in Mexico at the 22nd Children's Drawing Contest in 2017, receiving honorable mention by international judges. Nishka is also a dancer, practicing ballet, contemporary, and tap dance. And she has competed twice in the All Dance International World Competition and placed first in a variety of categories with her team. I would like you all to welcome these young people who are here to share their views with us. All of them, as you can see, are artists in one form or another. So we welcome you and looking forward to hearing your voices this evening. Back over to you, Taise.
Thank you so much, Kellyanne. I think really and truly right now, we simply have to welcome the guest speaker for the evening, Ms. Rachel Mcdonald.
Hello, hello, and thank you so much, Taise, for that amazing little introduction as to the work I have been doing and continue to do. You make me sound really good. So again, you know, in the words of coffee, gratitude is a must. So let me just start off by saying a big thank you to you and to your team for inviting me to be a part of this evening's conversation, and also to really highlight the fact that this session is a really, really big deal. It's a big deal simply because we have amazingly creative students from Trinidad, from Barbados, and from Jamaica who have agreed to share their experiences and also, more importantly, their ideas. So for all of the persons who are watching from across the Caribbean, please allow me to do this, just big up our students. We don't often have or have the opportunity to hear our students in forums like this. So please, please, please make them feel welcome, right? This is especially critical as we seek to chart this new way forward amidst this COVID excitement and, you know, as we try to do that safely and sensibly. So I am really grateful again to be able to speak, right? Now, I was a child who got in a lot of trouble for talking. In prep school, in high school, I got always in trouble. I used to get beaten from my father, beaten from the teacher because I talked nonstop. But why did I talk nonstop? I mean, they told me at the time that I would never enter a profession that would allow me to speak that much. Newsflash, here I am, and here you are listening to me talk, right? But, you know, education in the 80s and in the 90s didn't facilitate this sort of discussion. It didn't facilitate students' passions, right? So for a long time, we have known that education needed this sort of reimagination. Education needed this very well needed oomph, right? Everybody knew this. This has been no surprise. All the countries across the world, especially in the Caribbean, we have made great mention of this, right? Then boom, COVID hits. And what does COVID do? COVID throws us a curveball and forces us into this sort of reimagining of education. So everybody start to do things differently. We start to change our mindset, or so we thought, or so we think. We start to change our mindset, and we start to sort of reimagine the mundane. Imagine having to write down your homework every single solitary day in a notebook. And then all of a sudden you have Google Classroom and you're checking your email and you're seeing the tasks for the entire week, right? We have changed the way information was shared because of COVID, right? COVID allowed us to change the way we communicate, which was well needed, right? But what it did is it forced people like me, people like teachers, people like parents, people like students to do things differently in their edu spaces. And note, since COVID, I don't say schools anymore, I say edu spaces, simply because education is not limited to a classroom. It's not limited to a whiteboard or a blackboard. It's not limited to a student sitting around a desk on a table. It can take place in the living room, in the dining room, in front of Miss Matty's shop where you can catch some Wi-Fi, right? It takes place behind a screen. It takes place outside in the garden. It takes place in the community blackboard when you stand in front of it and you're taking off the notes, right? So education is no longer limited to a physical infrastructural space. It's anywhere. It's this dissemination of knowledge. It's wherever we can reach it. And this is one of the things that COVID has reminded us of. It has put it right there in front of our faces. And, you know, a lot of people think COVID has done us this great, huge injustice. And I beg to differ. I don't think so. I think that if we utilize and if we see COVID as an opportunity to do things differently, then we'll appreciate it. Then we will find a way to express gratitude. And they say in all things you have to give thanks. And I go back to coffee again. Gratitude is a must, right? So what COVID has done is it has thrown us a curveball and it has prompted us to think differently, right? And we all know this. We've all managed to do things in very non-traditional, in very hands-on ways. Well, not all of us, some of us, to be fair, right? We started to do things that we never did. Parents, if you're listening, we all know that a couple of you started to bake banana bread, right? This is true. Some of you started to garden in your backyard, right? Some of you turned teacher, right? Things that you hadn't done in a very long time. Homework became classwork, became schoolwork, became opportunities for you to bond with your child, for you to engage with your child, for you to connect with lessons, with curricula in a way that you weren't necessarily doing pre-COVID. True or false, right? I know it's true, right? And what we see is that COVID incentivized us to do things differently. And I want to just focus on a couple of things that I saw coming out of COVID that I think were just really, really game-changing opportunities. I saw satellite schools being set up, pod schools being set up, small pod learning centers. I saw teachers in Jamaica going into communities and painting a wall outside black and writing notes on it and having parents come in and engage. I mean, we saw innovation at its finest. And as you mentioned, Taitu, earlier, you know, one of the UNICEF recommendations is for innovation to be a major part of the reopening plan, right? Ladies and gentlemen, students all, that is innovation, right? Doing things differently, doing what you can to maximize on the effect, right? So we're seeing pods, we're seeing after-school interventions in places like Denham Town in Kingston, Jamaica, which is a zone of special operations. So there's a lot of, you know, violence and there's a need for students to engage. And what we see students coming out in pods of 8 to 10 in the afternoon because what? They don't have any devices. If they do have devices, they don't have any internet to connect from. And some of them, if they do, their parents and grandparents and auntie and uncle who are supervising them in the daytime don't know how to navigate Google Classroom, to link on Google Docs, to go back on Google Meet, to do all of those fancy hyperlooted things. So they are the ones to benefit from those little pod-like settings for 2 hours every afternoon. Those were their only opportunities to engage with any sort of academic content, right? So we saw where pods worked. We saw where investment in situations and going into communities and setting up those little pods worked. We started to see where teachers now depended on each other. So pre-COVID, everybody liked to do their own thing. I'm rocking it in my classroom. You stay over there in your classroom. Me and you don't need to talk. I have it locked. You have it locked. What we see now is everybody's open to doing things differently and everybody needs support. So everybody start to actually respond on that WhatsApp chat. Everybody start to ask questions. You start to share resources. Where you get those links from? What website to use for the social studies lesson? Let me see your literacy links. Okay, cool. So you start to see the need for professional learning circles or professional learning networks or whatever you want to call them. You start to see the need and the benefits of collaboration, right? You start to see teachers supporting teachers, which is very welcome, right? Because we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. And together, through exchange, we can strengthen those weaknesses, right? And this is what we started to see as a result of COVID, or rather what I started to see as a result of COVID, right? We also started to see our students being engaged differently. We started to see them participate in completely different ways. So we started to see children use TikTok to explain a lesson. True or false? Yes, Nishka, I see you laughing. We start to see people using TikTok. We start to see students connecting over social media like Instagram and whichever other ones. I start to see, I hear Discord. There's another one. I'm learning all of the different social media platforms, but we start to see people engaging through these platforms to share questions, to ask comments, to just connect, right? And, you know, for me, that's one thing that I miss. I miss the connections. I missed seeing people during COVID. I missed hearing what you were up to and sensing your energy and feeling your energy. But thankfully, God bless video calls. You can still see people's face. You can still pick up on their energy. And we started to see students being engaged differently. And if you're being engaged differently, you know what that means? You can be assessed differently. Now, some schools and in some spaces, teachers started to tweak the way that students were assessed. And Lord knows we have needed the tweak in assessments for a long, long time, right? So those are some of the things that I started to see. I started to see the inclusion of things like mindfulness in sessions. And for me, mindfulness is so important because we have taken for granted, and I know Nishka, you may like this, our socio-emotional health. We've taken our mental health for granted. So we've not really considered exactly how our students feel all the time when they come to school. You come to school, you have to learn, right? Let's get into the maths, do the maths, times table, like numeracy, let's write this letter, let's write this essay, come, STEM. But how are you feeling? How are you really feeling today? And we started to see a shift in where the energies were, where the attention lied. And for me, that was impressive. And then in the last couple of weeks, school's starting to open back. And what's happening when we're starting to open back? Of course, yes, we are prioritizing safety. We are taking temperatures, right? And we are encouraging sanitization. So, okay, we're working with the physical distancing and things like that. But how are we really addressing learning loss? How are we really addressing our students who have been out of school for the entire 2 years, who couldn't go to any pod, who couldn't go to any after-school community intervention, who had no opportunity to engage whatsoever? What about those students who literally went to the corner where they saw the men gambling and they wanted sweetie? So they went and they picked that lady's pocket, stole her handbag so that they could go and make money and play video games, right? Or buy or rent video games. Those were some of the realities that were evident to me and what I saw. So I am mindful of the fact that we're back at school. Are we really addressing learning loss? Are we really, really re-examining the idea of innovation? Yes, I know we can't do anything unless our children are safe and unless our children are secure. But these are things that I've just noticed. So I wanted to just start the conversation, sharing a few of my ideas. And again, I just want to ask everybody, have we made learning fun? So my company's name was Fundaciones, our hashtag was Learn the Fun. You know, everything is all about the fun. You know why? When activities are fun, what do students do? What do we do? When we have fun, what do? We remember it, right? We remember it. And don't we want our lessons and our activities and our engagements to be fun? Issa, Mandela, I see you shaking your head. I know you're in agreement with me, right? So I get bored too, you know. I tap out after a while if you're saying the same thing over and over again. And I know many, many teachers suffer from the same feeling, like, okay, we have to do this again. Oh my gosh. It's time to get fun. It's time for us to have fun. It's time for us to prioritize fun at the core of all that we do. It's time for us to think about our students. It's time for us to just reimagine education from a more child-friendly space. You know, we have it lucky. In Jamaica, at the early childhood level, we have a play-based curriculum. And you know what most Jamaicans say? Ramping thing you're going with. What do you mean play-based? You know what play is? Plays singing, plays dancing, plays investigating, plays talking, plays drawing, plays drumming, plays all of that and more. And it is through activities like that that we learn, that we connect, that we make meaning, that we find sense in what we do. So, moderator, that's my opening remarks. And I'm looking forward to sort of just continuing the conversation and just hearing what our students have to say, and also to brainstorm some opportunities for us to think things through a little bit more and share our suggestions. So we don't want to just be a talk shop. We want to literally share these suggestions. And I know we have a student here who has penned a letter to the newspaper before. So, you know, I'm putting no pressure on anyone, but I'm just saying, you know, let's share some of the solutions and ideas from today's session, and let's get it to those who need to hear it.
Thank you so much for that, Rachel. I'm just going to hand over to Kellyanne, who's going to moderate the conversation between yourself and the learners. And right now to really hear from Issa Mandela, from Taise, from Kaimorali, from Nishka, on what learning was like for them during COVID. But I'm going to hand over to Kellyanne, who will navigate that part of the session. Over to you, Kellyanne.
Okay, first we're going to have Taise. If you could tell us about some of your experiences and learning during the COVID environment. What was it like for you?
Okay, so learning, well, for the COVID environment face-to-face, it's actually pretty fun, but like from before, when we were able to go to face-to-face COVID, the parents could go on the compound of the school, and now the teachers have to go on the hallway and take microphones and yell through the microphones, because that's the only time we can actually speak to each other when we're going home, because in class we don't really speak to each other, because in break our mask is off, so we can't communicate unless we're done eating, put on a mask and then speak. And my teacher is very strict about that. So anytime someone's saying something with their mask on, they come to go and then starts yelling, and then I'm like, I don't want to hear this anymore. You said it 5 times already. So, and then online it was more easier to speak to each other, because like there was this one time where the teacher would let us like have a conversation before we like start school, because we always have to be muted. And then we have to ask questions, we raise your hand and all that things. For face to face, we could talk to each other, but like if our masks aren't on properly or something goes wrong, she's like, you need to fix your mask, because these are for children masks, we have mandatory masks, you're supposed to fit in your face, and all. And sometimes, like the mask that I have the smallest face to my class. So when I wear a kid's mask, it goes down to my nose. For some reason, my face is way too small to fit a kid's mask. So I had to twist it and then put it on my ears, and yet it still falls down. And then for some people, when you're coming home, people like put signs, like stick signs to the windows of their car, because some people are talking while they're about to go home. So they have to stick signs on their car while they're driving through kind of like a roundabout. And our teachers, like, they would sit there, but before COVID, where we would sit here to wait for our parents, there was like an area where we would eat in the uppers, which is grade 1, grade 2, and all that stuff. We would sit there and eat. Now that's where the teachers sit now. And they yell at us, and then they come and tell us to move faster. There's a whole set of traffic behind the cars. And some of us don't even know how to tie their laces yet. Because I don't even know how they're in the juniors and have to wear laces because it's mandatory. And you don't even know how to tie your laces. So for in older classes, older people, they always have to yell. Well, not yell, but like say to the upper ones who are younger, but they have to yell at them like, tie your laces, you're gonna trip and fall. And then there's a Jamaican teacher there, and she goes ballistic, and she has the most loudest voice, and she's our swimming teacher. So if we misbehave, it's like the end of our lives. Our eardrums are broken.
Thank you for your perspective, Taise. So socializing with your friends and being able to talk as you used to and be amongst your friends was a challenge. And then adhering to the protocols and keeping your mask on and remembering to do certain things, it was also a challenge for you and your friends in remembering to do these things in order to keep safe. Next, we want to hear from Kaimorali. Can you tell us a bit about your experiences during the COVID environment and learning, and how was it for you? How is it for you?
Well, my experience, it was really good actually, because online I could like learn from the teacher, but I could also learn by myself. Like sometimes when you're at school, you don't get to like do what you want, like learn how you want. When you're online, it's like really easy to learn how you want to learn, because some things you can, write now, and then other things you can write later, or you could write it in a specific way, like the way that makes you learn easier. Online is like really easy to learn things in different ways, and to like learn at, like in a whole, like it's really easy to do that. But I really like that we're going back to school. I really like face-to-face. It's like some of the subjects are not that easy to like understand, like math. It's not easy to understand when you're like at home, because like the teacher has to be like showing you on the whiteboard that this is how it goes. And like when she's on Zoom, it's really like you don't understand what she's doing. So at school, like when I was at home, my favorite subject was English, and now it's actually math, because the teacher is so fun. Like she connects with us, because we could be doing like I don't know, rounding, and then she starts talking about her like past and stuff, and it's really fun, and I really enjoy it a lot. And like, yeah, face-to-face school makes you like, engage in school more, because you get really distracted online. But honestly, the experience was really good. I liked it a lot.
Thank you, Kaimora. And as you see, we learn in different ways. We have different needs as different people with different personalities. Issa, Mandela, let's hear about your experiences.
Okay, thank you. Well, when I first started, I had just moved from homeschool to the Christchurch Foundation School, and COVID, it did not impact me that heavily in terms of learning online, because from already a homeschooling background, I was very used to learning at home and online with Khan Academy. But one thing that I really did enjoy about online school was that in the morning at registration with my foreign teacher, I was able to have some really, really just deep conversations about topics like COVID. And it was so stimulating. It was so fun. And I also got to talk to my classmates, and when my foreign teacher permitted it, I was allowed to play piano for my classmates. So that was really memorable. And another thing was that English was so enjoyable. The discussions and the way that we analyzed the stories, they were great. I loved it. But in spite of these positive things, there were some negatives, which were my memory. I realized that my memory got worse. And if you know me, you know that I have a horrible memory. And it got so bad. And not just that, my eyesight, it also got worse. And I also realized that I became very introverted when, if you know me, I'm a real extrovert. I love talking to people. But even the thought of going outside, I just got really drowsy and groggy. I was like, what? I don't want to go outside. What do you mean? And I do, really quickly, I just wanted to give some quick recommendations to our policymakers and our educators. I just wanted to say, just please be mindful of what you allow children to analyze in terms of English literature when they're in this lockdown. Because when I was in school, I had to analyze, and my classmates, the whole class had to analyze stories that were actually based on murder. The first stories that we read, they were based on murder, abuse, and sexual abuse. It was not enjoyable at all. I could barely even get through it. I couldn't even read it. It was horrible. I couldn't take it. And because of what this time is like in terms of the doom and gloom and the disease and the death, I really think that policymakers should be really considering, better reading material. And another suggestion is for things like maybe we could have a class in nature, maybe a few days a week. What we could do is that we can set up tables outside and maybe like a botanical garden or maybe just a park. And a few days a week, have some nice classes outside, very supervised, very secure, obviously. And you can be with your peers. Yeah, that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Issa Mandela. And those suggestions were really good, especially like the one with classes in nature. I remember some primary schools, they would take the children on the playing field, take your benches or the chairs outside and you sit down and have your class out there. The fresh air really does you good when you're learning. I mean, some people go to sleep, but the fresh air does the mind and the body good. Thank you for that. Next, we have Nishka. If you could share your views with us.
So I think my views are a little controversial to the positive views on online teaching, because for me, my transition from in-person and physical school to online school was definitely a rocky one, and one that took a toll greatly on my mental health. Because, first of all, when online school, we have that face-to-face intimate interaction with peers, with teachers especially. So the delivery of information to us is a lot more effective, at least for me, and the ability to ask questions and stuff, because personally, I know for me, as well as a lot of my friends, sometimes it was a little anxiety inducing to unmute your mic and ask questions, because what if somebody's parents was listening? Just the factor of embarrassment was a little heightened online. So that took a toll on me in terms of just missing that intimate interaction in person with my classmates and my students, and my peers, And also, I know that for some people, the online education was a good change, because it was a change of setting from school where you only learn in the same way, writing on the blackboard every day, to multimedia education and stuff. But I think for a lot of the tech savvy students, that was tech-savvy teachers, I mean, that was definitely true because they were able to make use of the platforms in an effective way for students to understand the material. But I know for me, a lot of my teachers took a while to adjust to the new type of teaching. So the relay of information was a little inefficient and confusing for quite a while. But I know eventually it did improve. But there was just that rocky start at the beginning from the transition from physical into online. And also, so many distractions at home, because at home for some reason, my parents, even though they know I'm in online school, sometimes they mightn't realize it. So my mom would call me from work and ask me to go and wash the wares in the middle of a class. And so the distractions were a lot heightened. And although I'm sure parents did take and still do take our education seriously, just online, they took it a little less seriously. And in addition to that, I feel like it was a lot more stressful because we were expected to produce the same amount of work and the same quality of work, even though it was a huge transition from physical to online. Like, for example, also, I feel like we were also expected to produce that same quantity of work in a shorter period of time. Because I remember for me, in person school, I'd be asked to give up an essay, say on Monday, and it would be due on Thursday, a few days later. But online, I don't know, maybe there was this preconceived notion that we had more time and it was a more relaxed environment, but I would get an essay assigned Monday and due Tuesday. So it was a lot more stressful because it was the same amount of work that we had to cover in a shorter period of time, or even the same period of time, and they didn't take into consideration the mental adjustments that students would have to make to the new type of education, you know. I put down the points that I have to cover, so let me make sure I covered everything. Oh yeah, also for me, when I transitioned from physical school into online school, I was in Form 4 going into Form 5. So that was a year away from writing my CSEC examinations. And for me, online school was pretty demotivating because I didn't have the support of my peers, even the support of my teachers and stuff around me to kind of give me a gauge of where I was academically, what I needed to improve on. I didn't have that gauge, and I didn't have that motivation externally from my friends. And yeah, so it definitely took a toll. Although there was some benefits, like I had a more flexible schedule, I had a little more time. It just did take a toll on me mentally and academically. And I definitely agree with Issa Mandela in terms of his suggestions, because now we're back to physical school, and because we have to wear our masks all the time, the dynamic isn't the same as pre-COVID physical school. So I definitely think like a class in nature might be a really good idea to help students de-stress, because it is very stressful right now, especially the added stress of, you know, not wanting to transmit COVID or anything like that. And I also think another good suggestion would be for teachers to kind of take into consideration the effect of the workload and just the quantity of work that they give to students on their mental health. And I think it would be really cool to take like maybe mornings or at least once for the school day to check in on students and their mental health and make sure they're doing okay. Because I mean, in the current state that we're at, it is really stressful, and it could be anxiety inducing for a lot of students. So I think it's important to take some time to check in on students' mental health and not be completely focused on, you know, the delivery of education and more on the like whole rounded well-being of the child as well. So yeah.
Wow, Kellyanne, can I just jump in really quickly?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I just, you know, I'm a talker, but I really want to tell you guys, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing your experiences. And I hear so many suggestions that we can literally take back to those who matter. And I want to just start the conversation with you guys, if you just allow me to. Can I go ahead and just do that?
Go ahead.
First of all, I love the idea of having class outside, right? We have all of this space outside. We need to physically distance ourselves to begin with. You know, it is hot wearing those masks and we need to be outside. When you say class outside, do you mean that you want to move your literacy or your English class or your literature class outside? Or would you want to have a session like a nature studies session? Which or all are you actually referring to, guys?
May I speak on this real quick?
Absolutely, you all can
Okay.
speak.
Yes. Well, no, I do not mean a nature session. I mean to just move your daily classes. Say you have English literature, math, language, and so on and so forth, just outside into that setting. So maybe you could be around your peers in a very breathable space.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Okay, so you literally just mean doing things, having the sessions in a completely different space, a space that induces some sort of relaxation and comfort and sort of eases anxiety. Is that what you're kind of suggesting, Issa Mandela?
Yes, completely. That is what I'm suggesting.
Perfect. And girls, what do you think about that? Do you think that's a good idea? I mean, is it that you guys are not getting not getting enough opportunities to be outside? I don't know, Taise, do you have playtime where you get a chance to be on the playground? There's no playtime?
We only have playtime when we're like 5. And
Really? Wow. So there's no playtime?
No, not anymore. We can't go on the field. We can only go under the school where we sit down.
What? So there's no opportunities other than PE to run up and down and to play?
Basically, we literally have boxes that we stay in, bubbles.
Wow.
And so you have to go on a break.
So I hope the powers that be are listening. We want to move again, right? And as we said earlier, education is not limited to in front of the screen and behind the screen or in front of a desk or behind the desk. We want, as our children have said, to move that sort of engagement outdoors or even to different spaces, maybe even in the auditorium, right? Maybe under a tree. It doesn't have to be on the playing field, just in different open air settings, correct?
Yeah, can I talk on this part as well?
Absolutely, Kaimorali, let's hear from you.
Okay, so at Immaculate, there's this, it's not really a playfield, but it's like a lawn. So when we had school going every other week, we were allowed to sit on the lawn, play on the lawn, or whatever. But now that school is open again, we can't sit on the lawn, we can't walk on the lawn, we can't do anything on the lawn. So we have this area that goes all the way down to the entrance where we all sit on because we want to move around because we're not allowed to eat in the classrooms. So we all go outside. And for the going outside thing, because I really love to not be in the classroom because when sitting down in the chairs for such a long time, it really hurts your body and you get anxious. I get really anxious when I sit in one place for a long time. So the going outside would have been a really good idea, but it's the fact that we're not allowed to go on the lawn or do it in a safe space because there's places where we sit aren't going to hold the entire class that everyone could hear at the same time. But I honestly think that's a really good idea. I love this a lot.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I love being outside. I love feeling the breeze. And to those who are listening, when we're outside, when we ourselves are outside, we are given opportunities to be mindful. We get a chance to feel the breeze on our skin. We get a chance to notice that little leaf tumbling and blowing away. We get a chance to literally focus on things that we may not necessarily be able to focus on. And that helps to calm us down. And that feeds into my next point, which is that of anxiety. So many of you have expressed instances of feeling anxious and just anxiety on a whole. So what I want to find out is if you are all suggesting that maybe it's time for some amount of what we refer to as socio-emotional learning type activities take place in class, right? Where we get a chance to really say how we're feeling and to have our thoughts shared, not even necessarily our thoughts shared, but just an opportunity for us to make our teachers know, all right, miss, I'm really feeling funky today, or miss, I'm freaking out inside, like I'm really nervous. I don't know how I'm going to approach this. Like, do we need more opportunities to share? Do we need more opportunities to be mindful? Tell me what you're thinking and tell me if you have any ideas. Anybody? Taise, let's hear from you.
So luckily I have a really understanding teacher. So like at our school, if we have like a headache or something like literally is wrong with us, she will tell us to go to the office and we call like the person who sits there and just types nonstop. We call her Auntie Suzanne. So we will go here, he will go there and we tell her. And if we feel freaked out when we are online, as you know, you could share your screen. She would show us these like episodes of videos. Like there was this one video about this guy was anxious about a test, and they would like it would teach us how to like calm down, relax, and then we would have to like guess what to do. It's kind of like an activity. Since I go to a Catholic school, we will pray and then watch a video. Like if it's a feast day, we will watch a video after. But some days we will watch a video about an episode, and it will teach us how to like, if you're feeling anxious, to calm down. If you're feeling angry, you count to 10.
So Taise, you did that during online school, right?
And face to face.
So you're doing that now face to face as well. And is that helping you? Is that working?
Yes. But sometimes it doesn't really work. Like for some people are like really like get really anxious and actually have to go. Like it doesn't work with breathing in. So you actually have to go somewhere, like to the office. But it does work when you're just feeling anxious a lot.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else have anything they want to say or want to add? Nishka?
Yeah.
Okay. You want Nishka? Let's hear from Nishka.
Yeah, I wish all schools did what they did in Thaise's school, which is where, I mean, first of all, I feel like we should get platforms to be able to talk about how we speak. And when I say platforms, just like periods of time, at least once for the day, where teachers just check in on us and we're able to, you know, voice how we're feeling in a open and safe space. But I think it's so important that we get taught coping strategies, how to deal with like anxiety that we might face transitioning now from online back into physical school, or stress or things like that. I think that's so important to teach us, because that's so amazing that at 9 years old she knows how to calm anxiety, because she's being taught that from a young age. I only recently learned how to do that, you know. So I feel like it would be so helpful to students, especially during this time, to get periods where they learn how to cope with the problems that they face in mentally, and they get to talk about it as well.
So then do you think we need to have more time for things like guidance and counseling and personal development?
Yeah.
Things that pre-COVID were just like, it's just another class. But do you think we need to have more time slotted for those sessions now?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think it's always been a necessity and something that has been overlooked, mental health. But now more than ever, especially in the pandemic, where, I mean, we have people's families getting sick left, right, and center. We have a lot of pain going on all around us. It's important to get grounded and learn how to deal with the emotions that we feel in a healthy way.
Okay. What can we do with each other? Is there opportunities for us to reconnect using the online platforms and support our friends? And you're in high school, so it may be a lot easier for you to, let's say, start a peer counseling movement in your school, and maybe once a week we can check in with each other and you can share what's on your mind, what you're struggling with, and then try and brainstorm and offer solutions. Is that something that perhaps you could start in your school and get support from your maybe form teacher or your guidance counselor or principal?
That's actually a really good idea. I don't know why I've never thought of it, but I think that'd be so helpful to a lot of students. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Issa, Mandela, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I did. So I would just like to say that it would be amazing if teachers really took into consideration what students were trying to say, and if they put it forward respectfully, in terms of maybe the teacher isn't going over it clearly for them, or maybe there's something that they found offensive, that when you talk to the teacher about it, the teacher doesn't instantly just shut you down and say, okay, stop, be quiet, right? And that they engage you and really try and find out what's wrong, and maybe they could fix it. That's just a suggestion. But I do remember that type of situation that happened to me with a teacher when I was trying to, I realized that she was not treating the students in the class very well. So I said that to her respectfully. And the next day, when we had to actually go to face-to-face school, when you go in and you're getting your hands sanitized, she just told me to stand up there. So she basically made me stand up for the whole class. And she told me, it was 2 periods. She asked me if I wanted to apologize. And I said no, because I didn't have anything to apologize for. I was simply just speaking my mind. And again, I didn't do it in a disrespectful way.
Wow, I'm sorry that you went through that. So ultimately, what I'm hearing from you and what I'm hearing from all of you is that as we move back into these face-to-face settings, what is missing from the conversation is student voices, right? Yes. It's an opportunity to share what we really think should be happening and can happen differently, right? So there are very limited, if any, opportunities for all of you and your schoolmates and classmates to really say what you want. And I know that is probably leading to some of the anxiety that you're feeling, some of the curiosity, the worry, the disappointment, the hurt, the angst, right? So we need to be able to offer our ideas. Maybe student suggestion box where it stays anonymous, but you drop in what you think about a course or what you think about what we learned for social studies or for math for the entire year. These are suggestions that parents listening, you can share with your teachers, with the school administrators, that we can try and do in districts and across regions, educational regions. Student suggestion box, student drop boxes. Maybe even, we're all Google friendly these days, maybe even a Google form where we give feedback. So what you mentioned earlier, Issa Mandela, how reading those books really played on your mental health. We can offer some other suggestions. Say, Miss, I think that content was a little bit harsh at this time. Why not suggest this and this? So it's one thing for us to give our opinions as persons, but as we give opinions, let's also try and back those opinions up with something else, with a solution, with an action.
Okay.
Let me hear back from Issa first, Taise.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna say about the books. I did actually go to my teacher and I did express what I was feeling about the books, because I thought, I have no idea why we're reading this type of stuff and having to actually go through it. And we had to analyze the type of abuse that it was. So we had to really analyze it, right? And I brought that forward to my teacher, and she did engage it, but she did not engage it in a way to maybe resolve the problem or maybe put in a word for maybe we should change this. No, she said, well, you're gonna have to do that on the CXC test. So don't worry, you're gonna have to do it on CXC, so it doesn't matter. And she was saying, what if you want to become a lawyer and there's a case like that? But that was not exactly what I was trying to say. I was just trying to say that
pandemic, so it was just an emotionally difficult.
Yes,
right?
Completely.
So if there are any teachers listening, and I know teachers, we do have some amount of opportunity to tweak and to choose the books and the educational content that we use and rely on in our spaces. I saw a tweet a couple of days ago from another principal, a principal of an international school, asking on Twitter, hey, teachers, administrators, when last have you reviewed your curriculum? When last have you looked to see what topics you're covering, what books you're using, how relevant it is. So this is something that we together can action. We're looking at things for relevance. We're looking at things for how timely they are, and also for the impact they have on us at particular periods of time. These are excellent points, and I'm so grateful that you are raising it. So we have point one, as we move forward, as we reimagine education. Let me just recap really quickly. We want to factor in our students' socio-emotional health. We want opportunities for us to take things outside, for us to not only be seated around a table and share for learning, right? We want opportunities, number one, to express ourselves, for us to have these student check-ins where we can say exactly what we're feeling, right? We used to do one, and moderator, I know you're familiar with this one, the whiffle. And I'm sharing this one, that's something that I've used and continue to use. I love it. It's called the whiffle, and it's WIFLE. And whiffle is an acronym for what I feel like expressing. So at the start of every morning, this is pre-COVID, during COVID, after COVID, each student is given the opportunity to say whatever they feel like expressing with zero judgment. Teachers, you cannot comment. You cannot say, but what's you, boy, you're ungrateful. So no, none of that. You're literally there to just listen to what your students say. And each student goes around and it starts like, what I feel like expressing is blank. The next person says, thank you for sharing, Rachel. What I feel like sharing is blank. And teachers, what you do is you can jot down how your students are feeling. You can note where there may be a little bit of extra stress for your student, and then you can follow up and share accordingly. But it makes students feel as if they're heard, they're seen, and that their emotions and feelings are being considered. So that is something that I've stuck by for a long time, and I encourage you all to do it. So, Nishka, maybe this is something that you can start with a Zoom call once a week with your friends. Hey, we're just gonna share what we feel like expressing. We don't have to action anything. We don't have to do anything, but we're just giving our colleagues, our friends, an opportunity to share what's on their mind. And teachers can do it too amongst themselves. It's not limited to students. It's limited to everybody. So one, we need to factor in socio-emotional health of our students. And two, we need to really give students an opportunity to share their thoughts on what's happening, right? Whether it's a Google form, whether it's a class review, whether it's what you think about this book, whether it's asking what books we could use, what new literature books could we include in the syllabus next year, right? But students need to feel heard. Am I missing anything, children, students? What do you think? Nothing?
Well, I just wanted to say the 2 points that I had a while ago on what you said. It's very like emotionally draining when you realize that no one is listening to like what you have to say, or like your suggestions in specific topics, or what we should do. Like, because if we're in a classroom with like a bunch of students who are similar in some ways, and they all agree on a specific way of learning something, and the teacher just says, no, that's not how it's going to go because I've been doing this for years, it's very like emotionally like draining, and it's just like energy draining to find out that you wanted to like learn because that's the only way you think you can learn, and you wanted to learn it that way and you can't. It's extremely emotionally draining. And I had this experience with my science class. The classes are broken into 3 groups, but sometimes they're into 2. So we have general science, which is like our entire form class. So we all have this group where we talk about how we like, it's very difficult for us to learn in science because it was online for a long period of time. And I think her way of teaching is like by shouting. And my class, like I think that everyone in our class is like very sensitive. So they found it really difficult to learn. So we told the principal and the vice principal, and they talked to her about it. And as soon as we got to face, it just got extremely bad because I had a science test on Monday and I studied, and nothing I studied for was on the test. She told us that we were supposed to study on cells, and we did not get anything like understandable on the test at all. So I really do think that some teachers need to switch up how they like approach students now, because we're like all a different generation and we're all like really different from like their past experiences. So it's honestly just to change up how it is, because it's getting really old now. The way they're teaching is not effective anymore.
Wow, powerful words, Kimora, powerful words. So ultimately, let me just try and recap what you're saying. You're saying that if we have to step out, and I'm thinking that I'm a student too. I'm a student of learning. I'm always learning. So if students have to come out of their comfort zones, right? You have to be able to learn online. You have to be able to learn in different ways. You're saying that it's only fair for teachers to also step outside of their comfort zones and do things differently too, right? Okay, powerful. And I agree, because COVID really kind of pushed everybody outside of their comfort zone, right? And the next thing I want to ask you is, so you're all back in face-to-face settings now, right? What's the fun thing about face-to-face setting? How has things changed? What has changed for the better? Is there anything fun taking place with face-to-face? Where's the good? Where's the excitement? Where is the fun? Taise, let's hear from you first.
So our teacher brought a monitors. Monitor. Laptop. And she was like online school. Like the videos that she would show us were just like feast days and those stuff which were like, they were educational but boring. She didn't show us like something, ta-da, bada bing. Now, when we were face to face in the school, she would bring her monitor, and when we were learning how to multiply fractions, there would be this great song that would rhyme, and it would be fun. And now there was this we could just do this. We couldn't like vibe to the song at all. We could just move around. But like on online, it was the most boring thing you could ever possibly do. Because like she would tell us to dance around, because sometimes we might listen to something that's catchy. But now in face to face, it's more exciting, because the thing that she realized that like on the first day of online school, she let us fill out a form about how we learn. Mm-hmm. Like some people, this is a Google Forms. There were no right or wrongs. So some people would put, I learned by listening, I learned by watching. Now I learned by watching. So she says, okay, you multiply fraction, when you multiply this, and then you cross off the denominator, and then you reduce, or you cross cancel. I wouldn't understand what she's saying, because it wouldn't click like so. Because some people would understand. She's just doing that. When she would write it, she would have to write it on the board or show me a video, and it would be more understanding for me to learn. And the videos that she would show us are pretty fun and exciting, so you could jam around sometimes. So I like that part. It was very fun and exciting.
Okay, well, thank you. And you know what? I'm so impressed that you know how you learn at age 9. You are a true rock star. That's awesome. Wonderful, right? Anyone else? What else did you want to say? Did you have someone else that sort of raised their hand, or let's hear from you, Nishko?
I think, two main good things happened for me. First thing being, I got to see my friends again after so long, because seeing them on a Zoom meet or on a video call is so different from seeing them in person, and it is so refreshing and so nice to finally see them. And then it also kind of boosted my mental health in some ways, getting the motivation from them, because let's say I had a bad class that day and my friends would see me down, they would come and they would tell me something motivating. And if it was online class, they might not be able to tell if I wasn't having a good day. They mightn't be able to help me in that same way. But now it's so refreshing, and it's so nice to finally see my friends and peers in person. And I think a second good thing, kind of piggybacking on what Taise was saying, is that now teachers are integrating some online aspects into in-person teaching. Like, for example, I have a teacher that integrates PowerPoints into his classes. So I don't know, it is nice to learn with different forms of media instead of the monotony of just copying down what's on the board, reading from the textbook. He'll send us videos sometimes. We could look at PowerPoints. We get supplemental notes sometimes after class. Like they integrate in technology into the normal mundane teaching, which is definitely making physical school a lot better and catering for all the different types of learners. It's still not where it could be, but it was definitely a big improvement from pre-COVID because they just catering for a lot more types of learning and integrating different types of media into the classroom to make it more fun and understanding for students.
And we all like technology. Eh? We love what technology and we love technology, how it has assisted our lives and made it so much easier. So the more technology that we can get in our spaces, in our classrooms, moving forward, ultimately the better, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
So what about fun though? What about fun? What would make education in your space fun right now? Let me hear Kimora. Let me have Kimora start
Okay, so I think, I don't remember what week it was, but we had Spirit Week, and that was the funnest week of my life I've ever had. Like the way that we had classes and the teachers coming out and doing things together. We had the carnival on Tuesday, and then at the end of the week we had Spirit Day, so we had to wear our Spirit Day shirts, but like a lot of them were sold out at the time, so we all wore PE tops, and it was so fun. The experience was amazing. The teachers participated, the students, the sixth formers, like they all participated, and it made school like face-to-face better. And seeing my friends at school, like what Nishka said, really helps with my mental health, because I can't talk, like I'm not the type of person to sound fun over text. It's extremely boring when I'm talking over text. So I prefer like seeing at school, I'm talking to them, and that they have special days like their birthdays and stuff. It's so fun to experience it with them, especially because these are like my friends that I met like last year, September, over online school. So me getting to meet them was just the highlight of my year this year. And this is why face-to-face is really fun, because the teachers are now participating in stuff. And we had Jamaica Day, but we were online, like lower school was online at the time, but they had a meeting, and it was like Rock Your Afro thing. And we saw on the school's Instagram how the sixth formers were having like anything but a bag day, and the teachers were participating, everyone was doing it, and it was so fun. I love it so much. Like it just brings the school spirit and makes it interesting to want to come to school.
Wow, that sounds like I should have gone to Spirit Week, but you didn't invite me. So next time you should, right? So ultimately then, Kimora, what you are saying is maybe having a school calendar with lots of opportunities for students to want to come to school. So days that will hype us up, and when you're in a feel-good mood, you forget about the anxiety and you don't feel so funky. You're like, yeah, we're having a good time.
They do have a school's calendar, but I don't think this year that we're having Sports Day. But I really want to experience Sports Day, because just Spirit Week alone was really exciting, and like the competition type thing was just fun. So I really want to experience Sports Day. But they do have a school's calendar, which shows like
on the school calendar.
Yes, more events, because they suggested anything but a bag day to the prefect council, and they actually did it, and that was so like really good to see that they listen to what we have to say and take into consideration of it.
So that's encouraging though, Kimora. That's encouraging that your administration listened to what the students had to say. So that's something that we can think about, students. We have to think about, so we can't just say, we don't want this, this is not good, this is bad. As I said earlier, we have to offer solutions. We have to offer suggestions. You can't just knock down an idea without presenting an alternative or sharing another opportunity for us to really engage. So what we are seeing now is the need for us as students to really put our thinking caps on, right? We have to constantly keep those caps on and think of things, like always be on our A game. right? So we have to use technology to see what other schools are doing, what other countries and communities are doing, and then we can tweak that a little bit and make it our own. We can come up with our own too. We can brainstorm our own ideas. So Kimora's experience reminds us that we are powerful and that we can be heard, right? So it's uplifting, it's encouraging, and I want you all to remember every time, like Issa Mandela, you just think about it. Listen, Kaimora's school listened to her. She offered some alternatives. So do not feel all gloomy and do not think it's all sadness and discouragement when your school doesn't listen to you at the first time. Just keep doing it as respectfully as you can and offering solutions. Eventually they will listen. Trust me.
Right? Excuse me.
Yes.
Quickly, I just wanted to mention that I'm actually in homeschool right now.
Okay.
I have been, yes. Just wanted to mention that.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that again. So ultimately, we want more opportunities for school to be fun, more opportunities for us to engage with each other, with the different forums, with the teachers, with the administrators. That matters. And I thought of something based on what you said, Kaimora. You said you saw on Instagram what the sixth formers were doing. So does that mean that perhaps we need to start using social media a little bit more as a way to keep us connected, to encourage the fun a little bit more? We know that we only have, 7 hours a day? How many hours a day do we have in school? 8 to 2. My math brain is not working right now. But we can connect, Nishka, via social media, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that would be so fun.
So Nishka, I'm going to challenge you to do that. You be that bridge, you be that link, right? I can put you on to some schools in Jamaica. We can exchange school details, and we start to see what's happening in Trinidad. We start to see what's happening in Barbados. We see what's happening in St. Kitts. We see what's happening in Antigua, and we just all start to collaborate. There's power in networking. There's power in the connections, right? Yes, Thais, you have a question?
Not really a question. It's just that I communicate with my friends on a Google Hangout, so a chat.
A group hangout, yes.
So I was wondering if teachers could maybe use that thing to connect with students, so you don't have to say it to the entire class how you feel, how you don't feel comfortable with saying that. Maybe you could just say it to your teacher, and the teacher could ask questions to see.
That's an excellent idea. So let me ask you, I'm ready to play devil's advocate now and to start picking your brains. So what about the students who don't have access to internet, who don't have a device? How do we keep those students included, right?
Students, since we're not allowed to speak in class, but at breaks or sometimes when we're done eating, people have whiteboards, Ms. Silver suggested whiteboards to write if we're doing math questions and we want us instead of going on the board. We my friend Lee, she would put something down on the board, and since we're far away from each other, I could be able to read the thing. So if they don't have devices, they could just take a piece of paper with a pencil. We would just take out an exercise book and write and
maybe put it on a notice board so that everybody can see it and share messages on a physical notice board.
Yes.
That's a good idea too, to keep everyone included in the conversation. I like that idea. Any other suggestions? How do we strike the balance with technology moving forward when not everyone has a device, when not everyone has internet, when the internet is dodgy? What can we do? How do we maintain the fun? How do we move forward thinking about our classmates with those challenges?
I mean, I know for me in my school, I'm not sure if this is across the Caribbean though. When we now transitioned from physical into online school, we had to fill out this form asking us if we needed assistance with devices. So school, I'm pretty sure it was sponsored by the ministry, I'm not sure though, would help to give money to those who needed that to get a device. But then also that doesn't solve the problem of needing internet connection exactly. So I mean, that's one thing that they could offer, probably the school could offer devices to their students to help them out. I'm not too sure about the internet connection problem though, but I think that could be maybe a solution.
But I mean, it's a step and it's a start. So thank you for sharing that. But what I encourage you to do, students, as we move forward, is to think about the other students who are having different experiences from the ones that you're having. Let's try and think about everybody. Let's think about how difficult it is to come back into a classroom. How difficult it is to come back into a classroom when you have not engaged in any content at all for 2 years. Can you think about like how holding a pencil is difficult, right? You know, can you think about how your teacher must feel when she has 30 children in a class, 30 students in a class, and some are still writing, some have not been able to write because they've been typing so much, and some have not seen a pencil. So you realize that maybe Miss is really, really overwhelmed and stressed out by the complete disparity in skill, in capacity, in who can do what. So it's hard for her to infuse new ideas into the setting when she has 10 different types of learners to begin with 15 different students who are at this level and another 15 at that level. So, you know, sometimes it's a lot of moving parts, and I want to encourage you all to think about those moving parts, right? As we brainstorm more solutions, okay? Moderator, I see you have your hand up.
I was actually giving us a time check as well as to raise a few comments that has come from YouTube. I'm not sure why my camera isn't showing, but anyway, everyone can hear me.
We can hear you.
Comments, yeah. So Taise just actually said that perhaps community school would be a good idea.
School, yes. Excellent.
So I think that's a really good idea, where you'd have the small classes. I'm really impressed by some of these recommendations. What it is telling me is that I think we need to hear more from children and young people on what kind of solutions we need to find for solving the problems coming out of COVID and going back into the education system. It has really been, really heartening for me to hear some of the recommendations and suggestions and also experiences that they've been having. We've had quite a few comments online, and Lynette Kokaram says that she's proud of all these young people who have expressed themselves so well and have given really interesting ideas. And I think we definitely need to big them up for that,
Yes.
Yeah. For me, one of the things that I think is clear is we need to definitely find more spaces for the opinions and perspectives and ideas and recommendations of young persons in terms of how we return back to school. I don't think that we should be going back to school in the way in which things were before, but rather to see it as an opportunity for blended learning, and recognizing that children and young persons learn in such a varied way. We have different types of learners. So therefore it is a challenge, not just for teachers and for the learners, but also for practitioners, for policymakers, for curriculum developers, for those who work on the interface of technology and education, to start thinking more. I don't want to say start because it has already begun, but to continue to think outside of the box and not to see going back to face-to-face school as a way to go back to the way things were before, but rather we have to really morph into something that puts children center into learning. And while we have to think about safety and security and the masks and all of those things, recognize that we can't be too clinical about it, We have to consider things like play, and we have to balance outdoor activities and recognize that when we do things outdoor, it also helps us reduce our likelihood of catching COVID, and also helps us with some of the mental health challenges that so many of the learners this evening brought up, So I kind of just wanted to bring that in slowly and pointedly, and to recognize that we do need to hold the various states in our countries and those who are responsible for the education systems are more accountable, and to be willing to work with them to find the solutions. It's not bashing what they've been doing, but rather to have a kind of a relationship where we recognize that things really can't go back to how they were before, and that we have to move forward in a way where children have to be center, and make the best of the opportunity, as challenging as it may be, So I kind of wanted to just wrap up there and see if there were any more comments from Facebook or YouTube. A lot of big ups, a lot of congratulations to Nishka, to Taise, to Kimora, to Issa Mandela. All wonderful praises and words for your perspectives this evening, and we definitely appreciate it. Rachel, I also want to thank you as well. So I'm going to hand over to, if anyone wants any last set of comments and so on, and then we can wrap up after that.
I guess I will just say that it is so good to hear the perspective of these phenomenal students.
Absolutely.
I think we need to have more conversations with students. I think student voice matters, and I welcome opportunities to just sit in sessions like this and hear from students like these. And I want to charge the students this evening with not just sharing your ideas, but take it to another level. Write a letter to your principal, send her a WhatsApp, write her an email, pen another letter to the editor of the newspaper, Nishka, right? You have brilliant ideas, all of you, right? Kimora, you are at a school where your voice matters clearly, right? So write on the opportunities that have presented themselves and use this to really, really create the setting that you want. This is your time to be a part of this whole reimagination of education. And what you say really, really matters and counts. So please don't just end the conversation when we come off of this Zoom meeting tonight, but take it on in the days and in the weeks to come. And this is just the beginning for you, okay?
I think I see Taise with her hand up. Taise? And then I guess after Taise finish, if there's any last comments or remarks that
Kimora has one.
Make, yeah. Go ahead, Taise, and then who else was that afterwards?
Kimora.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I have, before COVID, since we're not allowed to go on the field, and we start with that first. We have bleachers, and now what Kimora said she's not allowed to eat in the classroom. We have to eat in the classroom because we don't have, we can't go outside anymore unless it's before we had a music area, a library, all those places we could walk around and go. Now those places are restricted, you can't go there. But we have bleachers, and we would sit on the bleachers if we're begging to go outside, if it's a really hot day and we want to go outside to enjoy the sun. Since we don't have since we have curtains in case it rains, the curtains are rolled up, or I don't know how people do it in the knots, but in those. But sometimes she has to put it down. Now for the other classrooms, they have fans. Now the fans are attached to the walls. Now the fans, since fans, germs, masks might be horrible, not fitting on your face, we're not allowed to have fans. So when it's raining, and when it's raining, it gets pretty chilly. But people bring jackets, maybe one of these. And when the jackets get too hot and it rains and you close the window, it gets so hot that we have to go outside. And since we have mask breaks and water breaks, we have to go outside and enjoy the breeze, because the breeze doesn't really come in because those windows are pretty old and you just need to just to get it open. So when we have to go outside and step out and maybe go on the bleachers. Also, the second thing is, before COVID, we had a suggestion box that was in every single classroom. on the upstairs area, and we would write something on a piece of paper. We had maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes for everyone to write down something on a paper. And I kind of want to bring that back, but maybe instead of the teachers doing it, because usually like my teacher, she has to read, she has to go to the principal to have everything figured out to make sure if we need to do something online, because we can't just keep writing, because as Rachel said, I believe, that some people don't forget how to write because they've just been typing a lot. So maybe we could still write, but maybe put it on something that people can sanitize, and we could take markers, dry erase markers, and maybe they can stick on the paper. And maybe you can write your suggestions and put them in the suggestion box, because then you can go to the principal and she can bring them to the principal, or we can go to the principal's office and give it to them, because some suggestions are not being heard, because as Issa Mandela said, they just shut you off and just say, sit down, I don't need to hear it, this is my way of teaching, this is the only way you're going to teach you, and this is how it works. And also Kimura said that.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. Kimura, you wanted to add something? Thank you, Taise.
Yes, I do want to add something. I do think that teachers, well, not just teachers, all adults need to start listening to us, because we're going to be the new generation. At one point, you guys are not going to be around anymore. So you should, listening to us has to start, because sometimes you try to do something and in the most respectful way, and you get shut down, and then you get, sometimes you get angry or upset, and then you start to feel disrespected, or you become disrespectful. I do think that listening needs to start happening on both ends for everybody, especially the adults, because they feel like because we're younger, we don't know what we're talking about. But at the end of the day, when they're gone, we're all going to still be here. And, things are going to change, and things have to change, because we're not all the same as how students from 20 years ago, how they learned, or how they did things were completely different with the online thing and coming back to school and going online, and we're all different. So I think that schools all over the world actually need to start listening to their students, parents need to listen to their children, and that everyone just needs to start listening, because we are the new generation, and we have new things and new ways of doing this and doing that. And because at the end of the day, parents or teachers, they ask us how to do specific things after telling us, I don't need you to do that, or something like that.
So I love what you said, Kimura. We all just need to start listening. So we need to listen. You need to listen. It's a process. But thank you for sharing that. And I look forward to listening to you guys some more as well. Issa Mandela, you have your hand up.
Yes, I do. I just wanted to say, Nishka, Taise, and Kimura, hopefully I said your names right. It was great to hear your ideas and your thoughts. And I just want to say thank you for having me. And I had a great time.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we're going to go over to, is it Kellyanne? Let's go over to you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for joining us. Another comment in the chat. Someone is saying that we need to relate to our students and understand their needs and feelings. Someone else is saying that these kids are amazing and I enjoy them. And you have them smiling. And I really appreciate your views and the things that you shared. Gone are the days where it is said that children are to be seen and not heard. And we are all hearing from you that your voices need to be respected, your needs need to be respected and listened to and addressed. Taito, over to you for closing remarks.
Okay, thank you so much, Kellyanne. Thank you so much to Rachel for your conversation, for your engagement, for your insightful questions, for being so willing to engage with the learners / discussions this evening, you know, and who are advocates for their own learning experience. That is one of the things I really appreciated from all of you this evening, Taise, Nishka, Issa, Mandela, Kaimorali. I really appreciate how much you have been advocates for your own learning and the recommendations that you've given us, some of the tips as well, Rachel, that you have brought forward in terms of how we move forward. I think one of the things that WAND has struggles with is whenever we do have these public forums, there's always a question of what next. And that is something that I think myself and Kellyanne will probably have to brainstorm some more about, because this is, we all, you know, I must say we always have great online events, you know, but the thing always happens is what's next. So I think one of the things we have to brainstorm about is how do we grow and move from what we learned and what we listened to today. And I think from one's end, one of the things I think we will commit to do is to pulling all the thoughts together and crafting some kind of a policy note that we will share with the Ministry of Education here in Barbados. That much I think we can commit to do. And I think it's really important going forward to really center the values, the feelings, and the perspectives of children and youths, because as Kimora rightly said, you know, we do need to listen to them more. And when we are not here, they are the ones who are going to be in charge. So we shouldn't be doing things about them and not include them. So that is really what I want to close off by saying. I also want to say thank you to Kellyanne for being my co-facilitator. I appreciate it. Thank you, Rachel Mcdonald, for agreeing to be the guest speaker and engager, I should say, this evening. Thanks again for the parents who facilitated their children's participation. It could not have happened without you. And I want to thank the team at UA Open Campus for helping us to put on this evening's forum, to the marketing and communications team, to the IT team. We definitely appreciate the support and the facilitation. And so, without further ado, I'm wishing you all a wonderful evening and continue shining forward and continue to be the advocate for your own learning experience. Blessings and good night.
Good night.